Good afternoon, church. Pastor Craig here once again with a midweek greeting. Happy Wednesday to you. I'm sitting here in the sanctuary, and as I look around, I find myself imagining, what will it be like on the first Sunday when we don't have to pre-register? What will it be like on the first Sunday when we're free to sit wherever we'd like? What will it be like on the first Sunday when we're not required to wear masks anymore as we enter this building? What will it be like when we're able to come and go as we please and visit with people wherever we want? What will it be like when we're no longer limited to the number of people that we have in the building? Well, I'm excited to say that I don't have to imagine that for very much longer, because this Sunday is the Sunday in which the provincial government has announced the medical state of emergency will be lifted, which means effective this Sunday, you will not be required to pre-register. You won't be required to wear a mask. You won't be required to practice physical distancing. You'll be free to sit wherever you'd like in the sanctuary. A lot of things will change this Sunday. But I'm also reminded of something that will not change. You know, early on when we were first dealing with these restrictions and trying to decide how we were going to handle them, the board came up with a statement that we were going to do whatever we could to abide by the restrictions, and at times go over and above those restrictions in order to love and care for our church family and the broader community. You know, really, we were seeking to fulfill the calling that God gave us many years before COVID was in existence, long before we were dealing with this crisis. In fact, a mandate that was given really when scriptures were started and at the beginning of creation. That mandate that was summarized when Moses gave the instruction that God gave to him to pass on to the people of Israel in Deuteronomy 6. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. As we gather to worship God and to honor God. And that has not changed, whether we're living under restrictions or not. Whether we're limited to the size of the congregation or not, that has not changed. But when Jesus was asked what the greatest commandment was, he not only said the first and greatest commandment is to love the Lord our God, but he also pointed out the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. And that has not changed. Why did the board make the decision that they did early on to love and care for our church family and for the broader community? Well, because Jesus himself taught us to. John chapter 13, verse 34 says, "A new command I give you, love one another as I have loved you. So you must love one another. By this everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." As we look forward to gathering together on Sunday, as we look forward to a Sunday where we will see the restrictions not in place that have been, I want to encourage us to continue to focus on what will be the same. That as we gather to worship and glorify our risen Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, but also we gather to love and care for one another. And you know, one of the things that we can do to love and care for one another is acknowledging that not everyone is going to be at the same place in terms of comfort level in having these restrictions removed. If you come on Sunday morning, you're not required to wear a mask anymore. But if you're more comfortable continuing to wear a mask, I would encourage you to do so. In fact, masks will still be available in the foyer. If there is anybody that wishes to wear one and forgot to bring one, they will be available. And I would encourage you to do so, and to know that in doing so, you are loved and you are cared for. And we love you at EAC, no matter whether you choose to wear a mask or not. And we can demonstrate our love and care for one another by, when we see someone who's wearing a mask, respect their physical distance. Assume that they don't want a handshake, that they don't necessarily want a hug, that they are not comfortable taking that step yet in terms of things reopening and where things are at. And respect that of one another. And greet one another in whatever ways we can. Perhaps you go to shake somebody's hand and they pull their hand back but offer you a fist bump. Then heartily offer that fist bump and say how glad you are to see them and how great it is to be able to worship together. And let's just celebrate being together, and let's love and care for one another by respecting the fact that we may not all be at the same place in terms of what is comfortable. And I want to encourage you as individuals to make the decisions for yourself as to what you are comfortable with and then to act accordingly. And let's love and care for one another as we worship together, no matter what our positions are or comfort levels are in those areas. I'd appreciate your prayer for the board as we'll be meeting next week, and one of the things on our agenda is talking about how will we put back in place some of the programming things and you set up of the facilities, some of the things that happened during worship services that we haven't been doing during the last year. We want to be very careful and prayerfully consider how to bring some of those things back in, acknowledging that not everyone is necessarily comfortable bringing those things back in immediately. And also, it may not be wise. Just because the restrictions are lifted on July 11th doesn't mean that our circumstances change a whole lot from July 10th. It just means we're not required by law to have these restrictions in place. And so as a board, we want to prayerfully consider, how do we bring back in some of the things that we did during worship services, some of the programs that we've had? How and when do we bring those things back in? And we want to do so in a way that honors the various opinions that we may have of people within the church, but also follows God's leading as to what things are important for us to be doing at this time. And so I'd appreciate your prayers for the board as we work that through. But as we anticipate this Sunday, just to clarify, you will not be required to pre-register. You will not be required to have assigned seating. You will not be required to have physical distancing, which means you can come and go whenever you'd like, during the service, before the service, after the service. You can sit wherever you'd like. Those giving leadership will not be required to wear masks. And so I want to encourage us to gather together for a time of celebrating what God has brought us through as we celebrate the fact that the restrictions are not in place. But let's also focus on caring for one another and respecting and loving one another, no matter what our positions are. And if you would like to continue doing those things, you are welcome to. And as I say, know that you are loved and cared for. And so that is my prayer for us as a church family. This is my midweek greeting, both an announcement as far as what to expect on Sunday, but also just some thoughts about us continuing to care and love one another. And so I'd appreciate your prayers for leadership as we continue to work this through. I'd appreciate your prayers for us as a church family, that as we go through this time, we will continue to grow, that we will celebrate not only what God has brought us through, but we will anticipate Him doing new and renewed things in and through our church as we continue to follow Him and as we continue to strive to be the church God has called us to be, intentionally becoming people who embrace and reveal God's love. See you Sunday, church. Have a great week.